If you run a small e-commerce business, customer service is probably one of those things that never fully leaves your plate. You're fulfilling orders, managing inventory, running marketing, and somewhere in between all of that, a frustrated customer is waiting on a response. Today, we're going to look at what happens when you put AI in the middle of that workflow and how dramatically it changes both the time and the quality. Here's the reality for most small e-commerce operations. Every one of those inquiry types, the delayed shipment, the wrong item, the refund request, lands in your inbox. And every single one needs a thoughtful professional reply. There's no support department. There's no queue system. There's no team lead reviewing responses before they go out. There's just you, your energy level, and however many messages came in today. That's the starting point for most small businesses, and it's also where AI has the most immediate impact. The time cost alone is staggering when you actually do the math. 10 inquiries a day at 15 minutes each, that's 2.5 hours. Stretch that across a week, a month, a year, and you're looking at over 600 hours annually just on customer responses. 16 full work weeks. Gone. Not on strategy, not on growth, on writing variations of the same reply over and over. That's not a minor inconvenience. That's a structural drag on the business that compounds every single year. But here's the part that doesn't show up in the time math, and it might actually matter more. The Monday morning response and the Friday afternoon response are not the same response. One is warm, detailed, empathetic, on brand. The other is 2 sentences and a period. Same policy, same situation, completely different customer experience depending on when they happen to send their message. That inconsistency isn't a character flaw. It's just what happens when humans are tired, rushed, or buried under a backlog. AI doesn't have bad Fridays. It doesn't have off days. It doesn't write shorter replies when it's overwhelmed. That consistency alone is worth a lot. This is why AI handles that particular task so well. A good customer service response isn't creative writing, it's structured pattern work. You have a specific inquiry type, a customer tone, and a store policy that applies. AI takes those inputs, maps them to the appropriate response pattern, and produces a consistent on-brand reply every single time. That connection to pattern completion, which we covered in Making AI Make Sense series, is exactly why this workflow produces reliable results. The inputs are structured, the output type is defined, and the variation in quality that comes from human fatigue disappears entirely. And when you actually look at your inbox, the variety is smaller than it feels in the moment. Shipping and delivery questions, refund and return questions, product questions before a purchase, complaints from frustrated customers after something went wrong. That's the overwhelming majority of what comes in, which means you don't need 100 different prompts to cover your bases. You need one solid framework that adapts to 4 situations. That's the entire system. Build it once, and it handles most of what your inbox throws at you. The prompt framework has 4 inputs. Inquiry type: what is the customer actually asking about? Customer tone: are they frustrated, neutral, or just confused? Relevant policy: whatever store policy applies to the specific situation. And desired response tone: how do you want the reply to feel? Warm, apologetic, informative? Those 4 inputs are all AI needs to produce a response that's ready to review and send. The reason the framework works is that it removes all the guesswork. AI isn't trying to figure out what you want. You've told it exactly what the situation is and exactly how you want it handled. Here's what this looks like with a real prompt. A frustrated customer, delayed shipment, 10 days with no tracking information. The policy is to investigate after 7 business days and offer a replacement or refund if unresolved. The instruction is to respond warmly, acknowledge the frustration, explain the next step, and keep it under 100 words. That's the whole prompt. There's no secret to it. The specificity is what drives the quality. The more clearly you describe the situation in the policy, the less AI has to fill in on its own. And here's what comes out: warm opening, genuine acknowledgement of the frustration, a clear next step with a timeline, and a resolution offer. Under 100 words, professionally worded, policy accurate. The only thing left for you to do is read it once and hit send. That's 90 seconds start to finish, compared to 15 minutes of staring at a screen trying to find the right words while three other messages are waiting. And critically, it doesn't read like it was written by AI. It reads like it was written by someone who actually cares about the customer's experience. Now, watch what happens when you change just one input. Same delayed shipment scenario, same prompt framework, but the tone input shifts from neutral and confused to angry and demanding. The first response is calm and informative. Here's what to expect. Here's how tracking works. Here's the timeline. The second leads with empathy and de escalation. I hear you. This isn't the experience you deserved. I'm personally looking into this right now and will get back to you today. One variable changed. The entire response adapted to match the emotional context of the situation. That's the value of being explicit about tone in your prompt. AI doesn't infer, it responds to what you tell it. Now, here's the part that matters most, and it's worth spending time on. AI produces a draft. You decide whether it sends every single time. There are categories of situations where human judgment has to lead, and you need to know them before you build this into your workflow. Anything outside your normal policy, if the situation doesn't fit cleanly into what you've documented, don't rely on AI to improvise. Anything with legal exposure, disputes, chargebacks, threats, those need careful, deliberate language that you've reviewed personally. Public review responses carry higher stakes because they're visible to everyone, not just the customer. And any response where you read it and something just doesn't sit right, trust that instinct and rewrite it. The value of this workflow is that AI eliminates the blank page problem and the energy problem. The review step is still yours, and it should stay that way. The quality of what AI produces is directly tied to the quality of what you put in. And nowhere is that more true than with policy. If your prompt includes vague guidance, something like follow our normal return policy, AI will approximate. If your prompt includes the actual policy language, AI applies it accurately every time. The fix is simple: build a policy library. 4 short documents: shipping policy, return and refund policy, exchange process, escalation path. Keep them in plain language. When you build a prompt, paste the relevant one in directly. That single habit is the difference between responses that are close and responses that are exactly right. For the inquiry types that show up every week, you shouldn't be rebuilding the prompt from scratch each time. Write it once for delayed shipments. Write it once for refund requests. Write it once for wrong items received. Each one of those has a consistent structure. Acknowledge what happened, explain what comes next, offer a clear resolution. The customer details swap out each time. The framework stays. Once those 3 prompts exist, the most common situations in your inbox have a ready answer. That's the setup investment. Everything after that is execution. The workflow itself is simple. Paste the inquiry, run the prompt, review the response, send. But here's where it compounds into something more significant. When every person handling customer responses runs the same prompts with the same policy inputs, every response reflects the same brand voice. Not approximately the same. No retraining when someone new joins. No style guide that nobody reads. No hoping the part-time hire writes like you do. AI becomes the consistency layer across the entire operation. And that's what scale actually looks like for small business. It's not headcount, it's process. The before and after here is worth stating clearly. 15 minutes becomes 90 seconds. Inconsistent tone becomes consistent. On brand tone. regardless of who's handling responses. Energy dependent quality becomes policy accurate quality, regardless of what day it is or how many messages come in before this one. And the backlog that used to follow you into the weekend starts clearing. None of that requires a support team or a help desk subscription. It requires a prompt, a policy document, and one read through before you hit send. Let's put a number on it. 150 minutes a day before AI, 20 minutes a day after. That's 130 minutes returned to the business every single day. Across a year, that's over 500 hours. Not hours you have to find somewhere new, hours you were already spending just on something AI can now handle in a fraction of the time. That's the ROI. It's not projected or estimated, it's the direct result of a faster workflow applied to the same volume of inquiries you were already handling. Manual prompting gets you a long way, but there's a threshold where the approach needs to evolve. If you're consistently at 50 or more inquiries a day, prompting one at a time becomes its own bottleneck. If multiple team members are handling responses without a shared system, consistency breaks down at the coordination layer, even if everyone has the prompts. And if you need reporting, response times, resolution rates, trend data over time, a help desk with AI built in makes more sense than a prompt library managed into a document. The point isn't to push you toward a more expensive solution before you need it. It's to help you recognize the signal when manual prompting has done what it can do. Here's exactly where to start. Pull up your last 30 days of messages and identify the 3 inquiry types that keep showing up. Write your policy for each one in plain language. One short paragraph, no legal language required. Build one prompt per inquiry type using the 4 input framework from this video. Then, test each prompt on 5 real examples from your actual inbox before you use it live. Adjust the tone and policy language until the output feels like something you'd send. One afternoon of setup. The payoff runs for as long as you're running the business. Customers don't compare your responses to an industry benchmark. They compare them to how the last business they contacted made them feel. Brand A responds sometimes warmly, sometimes tensely, depending on the day and the workload. Brand B responds consistently, warm, clear, fast, policy accurate, every time, regardless of volume. That gap is a real competitive advantage, and most small businesses don't close it because doing so has historically required either significant time or significant staff. AI closes it with a prompt and a policy document. That's a different kind of leverage than most small businesses have had access to before. That's how AI handles customer service responses at scale, not by replacing the human judgment in the loop, but by eliminating the blank page, the inconsistency, and the time drain that makes customer service feel like a tax on running a business. This is part of our Making AI Work series. If you need this running across the team and want help building the system, let's talk. Subscribe for new workflows every week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.